afternoon. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real People, Real Health. This afternoon, I am excited to have a special guest. Her name is Sharron Jones, and Sharron is coming in live from Wales, Great Britain. Welcome to the show, Sharron.
Hi, thank you for having me, Jay.
It's my pleasure. I was excited when we met, and I don't think I knew initially that we had a friend in common, Jessica Alstrom. I just learned that about you yesterday, I believe, this morning when you shared that you have been a student of hers. She is a teacher, mentor, coach, and you've been associated with her quantum group for over a year now or so. Rather than me share your bio, which I've done on Facebook Live, I'd like to just invite you to start sharing your story, where you feel comfortable. If you want to go back a little bit and begin where it feels appropriate and comfortable for you. But before you do go there, I do want to welcome those that are with us live. If you hear something that you like or love, gently press the like or love button with love. And if there's anything that comes up in questions or comments, feel free to share them with both Sharron and I, and we'll do our best to respond either during the show or shortly thereafter. And this is the second show of this new platform that I have launched. That it's a show for people to come on and share their story of inspiration, where we are or have been in a medical diagnosis of some sort, and how we have embraced alternative, let's say, holistic modalities for the healing of our own mind, body, and soul, either independently or as a hybrid with the traditional medical care. I want to welcome Kathy Waldowski. I think Kathy is also part of Jessica's group, perhaps. Kathy, where do you live? Where do you come in from? I'd love to know that so I can have that in my cellular memory for the future. Judah, we know you are coming in from Berlin, Germany. Thank you so much. We have a global reach today. I'm coming in from Scottsdale, Arizona. Sharron, you are definitely coming in from Wales. And we have Judah coming in from Berlin. So we are a global reach social media platform. And that just makes me so happy that we can touch people all over the world. The only thing that stops us from touching one another, soul to soul, connecting soul to soul, is just a willingness or unwillingness to show up for ourselves. And so thank you for joining us. Kathy says she's coming in from Michigan, and I'm familiar with that state, been there a number of times for business. And so thank you for joining us today. And so Sharron, we met, I don't even recall how we met, if you had just popped on and joined in one of the shows that I was doing, but we connected, and so here we are today. And so without further ado, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. And as I shared with you before we went live, is that this is a safe zone. If there's anything that should come up for you that you feel uncomfortable with, as we unfold naturally in connecting soul to soul, if there's something that you're uncomfortable with, you can set a boundary with me and just say, I'm just not comfortable going there. And I will still respect you and love you for having the courage to do just that with me. And so here we go.
Okay, thank you. I'll start by saying I'm going to be 49 next month. And I basically have suffered with the label of mental health issues from specifically diagnosed from the age of 25. I was depressed before that, but I did not seek help because I did not realize you could get help from the doctor from that, because my family background was you just got on with it. So I didn't seek help. But what happened is, start from the beginning maybe. I initially, my career or whatever, my goal in life was to be a competitive athlete. I was a gymnast and an athlete. I did heptathlon, so you know, I did all the different you know, high jump, long jump, javelin, all that sort of stuff. And as I was talking to Jay earlier, when I was 17, I was training for a specific event, and I got injured and was told that I would no longer be able to do sport anymore. And this was a big blow to me, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. So I had surgery then, just before my 18th birthday. I had a lot of time off school because obviously because of the surgery, and I couldn't walk for a long time. They actually couldn't, they didn't know what was wrong with the knee in the end, because they said that the kneecap was not tracking on the joint, and they couldn't give it, it was something that stumped them. So they sort of did I was one of the first to have this sort of arthroscopy surgery, because this is back in the, when was this now? 88. So arthroscopy surgery, the keyhole surgery, was very new. And so they had a look in the knee and they sort of tried to clean it up and stuff. But unfortunately, I reacted to the arthroscopy and I ended up with a hernia of the knee, because the synovial joint capsule came out through the insertion point. So I took a lot longer to recover from what was supposedly a simple surgery. Anyway, during my school thing in Great Britain, we're at UK, we have A levels, and it's a 2-year course, and your A levels then determine what university you get in. So because of the amount of time I had off, and then the following year I had to have my wisdom teeth out, and again that was not a very nice experience. I had to go into hospital, have it done, and there was issues with my jaw and stuff. So I missed a lot of time with school. So in the end, I did not achieve the grades that were predicted and did not get the university place, because I had applied to do either physiotherapy or sports science degree, and I did not make the grade. So the day of my results, my heart sank, because I did not know what I was going to do again. But you know, expectations on you, I had to go and find a course. So I did a course I did not want to do. So I ended up doing business and finance with tourism and leisure management. And I did 2 years on the course and absolutely hated it. And I had some money for my 21st birthday, and then went and paid a private qualification then to become a fitness instructor. And that's what I did. And then a few years later, again, when I was 23, I was working in a fitness health club. I was down in England then, in Southampton, and I'd only been working for about 3 months in this new club. And I went for a swim after my shift, and when I tried to get out of the pool, my knees weren't having it, and I couldn't walk. So I had to go home, and because I hadn't been in the job long enough, there was no sick pay or anything. So I had to go home. So so I saw the doctor. I paid for a private scan, and it was the same issue as before. And they said, we can try another surgery. We can clean the knee up and what have you. So they did that. They did offer to take my kneecaps away, but I said no. And I'm so glad I did not do that. But then obviously after that, I've had 2 surgeries on my left and 1 on my right. So after that, those 2 further surgeries, I was told, no more sport. You cannot have a career in that field. So this really hit home, because I obviously hadn't dealt with it before enough. And so I tried to do what I usually do, was put a brave face on and just try and get on with my life. And that does not work, unfortunately. And I went and got what's classed as a normal job. I went and did an office job, and I was working in what's classed as social housing. So I was helping people get social housing. I was looking after what's called the waiting list. I gave people points to their situation and where they were on the waiting list and all that sort of stuff. Well, anyway, I worked in that for about 3 years because I was engaged to be married, and so I was saving money to buy a house. And but the month before I was getting married, I went away on this arts conference, and because a friend of mine at the time had said, I think you should go on this, and I was very open to it, so I went. And when I went to it, it sort of reconnected with the creative part of me, because when I was a child, I was both really creative and very sporty. But what happened was, when I was very little, I was very hyperactive. So my parents sent me to gymnastics to calm me down. So I had these 2 themes in my life of sport and creativity always took the back seat to sport, because I was always told you can't make a living from being an artist. So I didn't pursue that route. So I went on this course, and it just reconnected with the creative side of me. And this is where my soul started to, or spirit, whatever you want to call it, started to speak to me of, you know, you are an artist, this is what you need to do. But I didn't know what that looked like, or how that could unfold. And also, I knew the months before I was getting married that I shouldn't be getting married, because I was getting married for the wrong reasons, and I knew he wasn't right for me. So there we go. But because all the, you know, things had already, you know, been booked, and, you know, there's so much money involved and all this, I went through with it anyway. But, you know, unfortunately, the marriage did not work, and it was really, really difficult. I won't go into any details, obviously, because of my mental health. I was difficult to handle, shall we say. And I got depressed a lot. And what you got to remember is, when I used to do sport and stuff, I was incredibly fit. I did, you know, I was training all the time. I was really, really skinny, to the point of some people called me anorexic. And then when I started to be put on these medications, for the first time, I started to gain weight. And I began to hate myself. And that was the difficult thing then, because I didn't love myself. And that makes it really difficult in a relationship then, because intimacy becomes a difficult thing when you don't love yourself and you don't want to be seen and all these different things. So I did a piece of artwork when I I'm jumping on my timeline now, but I'll go back a bit, and hopefully I'll remember to come back. But when I was in this office job, my depression gradually got worse. As I said, I still got married, and I had to see, they call him an occupational health officer or something. And so I was allowed to have time off work to try and, you know, get better, which obviously it wasn't something I could do in that short space of time they gave me. And, you know, I was given, you know, the usual antidepressants, and, you know, they don't fix the problem. And, you know, they're just a band-aid. They don't make you feel better. In fact, they make you feel worse. Well, they did in my case, but that's another story. So I actually got sacked from that job because I had so much time off, and they didn't accept that depression was real, even though I had got a note and stuff, so I got sacked. So I've never been hospitalized or sectioned because I was always extremely compliant with the doctor. If the doctor said do this, I did it. And so I did have to attend a thing called day hospital, where it's like an outpatient hospital, where it was just specifically for mental health patients. And you went there every day, and they had, you know, a social group, and, you know, you did cooking together, and you did, you know, relaxation classes, lots of played games, had like group therapy, and there was an art group. And in the art group, it was just amazing. It was just, that was somewhere that I came alive. And from that, then I went, and I was 26, 27. So I then decided that I would consider going back to university. So this is what I did. And I went and did, in the UK, you do a year's foundation course, which is a year intensive, and you do all the different art disciplines, and then you choose what you want to specialize to do your degree in then. So I chose to do textiles because it was the broadest course that allowed me to learn the most variety of skills, which would be applicable. So I could do, you know, I could do fashion, I could do surface pattern design, I could just be an artist, I could be a costume designer. So I had loads of options. But obviously during the course, in the second part of the degree, so that's the second year, I turned 30. The pressure of doing the course and traveling every day, and not having the support of my husband at the time, because we didn't see eye to eye on where we were going and stuff. So the stress of that and the traveling, I became really depressed again. But there was an added thing this time, is that how can I say, this is where it gets into, how can we say, when I shared this with, because obviously I was still under the hospital, but you only see them every 6 months or so. So I was still on antidepressants. But then, as I said, when I turned 30 then, there were other things going on in my life. But I started to hear voices, and the voices weren't very nice, and they were telling me to do, you know, not very nice things. And and obviously to kill myself. You know, how could I live with myself and all this sort of stuff? So, and the other thing that was happening is that when I would walk down the street or anything like this, I would see creatures on people, and I would see what I, you know, at the time thought was their soul coming out of them and screaming at me and crying out for help and all this sort of stuff. And it was frightening, and I didn't know how to handle it. So I went back to the psychiatrist. So they said, you're having a psychotic break. We need to further medicate you. So I was put on more medication. This time I had antipsychotics, and I'm not sure, I can't remember now because it's so long back. I might have been given diazepam or propranolol. I had loads of different things in the mix. Anyway, so I had some time off my degree. I think I had a couple of months off to adjust and what have you. And then I was able to come back, and I finished my degree and got a 2-1. So I'm really happy with that. And within 6 months of finishing my degree, I had a phone call saying, this wasn't something I was looking for, but I had a phone call saying, will I come and be a lecturer? So a college in the next town had heard of me via someone else, of my artwork and stuff, and they wanted, because I had gone into another college just to share about my artwork and stuff, and they really liked how I presented and all this. They came and asked me to teach, so I took on a teaching post then. So going back to what I'd said previous, I made a piece of artwork when I was in university, and it said, I want to be held, but I can't bear to be touched. And that was the contradiction of my life. I was crying out to people, but I couldn't bear them to come anywhere near me, because I didn't know at the time that I was an empath and that I felt everything around me. And not only, you know, did I feel emotional stuff, I felt physical stuff as well. So I would have physical pain going on when I came around certain people, and I did not understand that. And I was just, you know, confused all the time. And I thought there was always something wrong with me and what have you. But where I will change direction a bit now is that going back to the beginning again, when I first had the surgery and I couldn't cope, is that I reached out to know if there was a God, because I wasn't brought up religious or anything like that, but the circumstances in my life, I needed more answers. And so that's when I was 18. I followed a path to go into church. So I went into a little conservative church where women were seen and not heard, and were not allowed to be leaders or take part in the main service. Women were only allowed to teach in the Sunday school, or they could teach in the youth groups. And it was very interesting because within a short space of time, I read through the Bible, and you know, God was communicating to me. I was seeing angels. I would read the scripture, and it would say, You know, there's gifts of miracles, there's gifts of prophecy, you know, you can speak with tongues of angels. So I'm reading this going, I want all of this, God. And instantly I could speak another language. And the church I was in did not believe in any of these gifts. So that was a challenge in itself, because, you know, I had suddenly, what I thought I'd found God and, you know, found the miraculous, and it said it's in their book, and yet they didn't believe it. So it was quite weird. Anyway, I digressed a little bit then, but where am I going with this? Well, anyway, I was advised within the church to go to what's classed as a Christian counsellor. And when I went there and shared the stuff I was going through and stuff, this is where it got difficult for me, because then I was accused of having a spirit of witchcraft and a spirit of divination. So I had to go through all these, what you would call deliverance, you know, exorcism things, which are not very nice things to go through. So this further compounded all these horrible feelings that I felt, that, you know, I hated myself, I felt unworthy, I didn't fit in anywhere, and yet, you know, my God was saying that you know, I was loved, you know, and it didn't matter. There was this conflict for me. So in the end, I actually left that church. I went to another church which actually believed in the gifts. And for a while, that went okay, until what I was being told to do got a little bit wackier. And I actually got accused of being a witch then. Not directly to my face, but this is what happened. So I had to leave there in the end. And I ended up in another church. And they were much more open to me, shall we say, although I think they still struggled with my, I don't know, weirdness. I don't know what, you know, you call it. Because really what I did in a lot of things, because they call these, how can I say, I struggle with the terminology, but I was led to do these sort of, I don't know, I don't even know how to call them, but, you know, I'll give you the one that, how I got to leave the previous church. We had a massive church conference, and in this conference I was leading workshops. I did these art workshops where they were called prophetic art workshops, and I was told by God to take feathers with me, and I thought these feathers were to do with the workshop I was doing, but it didn't happen that I used them in the workshop I was doing. But when we had the main service, which was in front of everybody, you have what's called a free worship time, where not it's a free for all, well it is, but so, you know, music is playing, but people can worship freely how they want to express themselves. So, you know, some people are standing quietly, some people are dancing, you know, whatever. Well, during that time, this inner voice in me said, I want you to get those feathers, I want you to run into the middle of the stage. Well, it wasn't a stage, but it was an open area. To run into the middle, throw the feathers up, and just follow what to do. So I trusted, whatever you want to call it, your intuition, the voice of God. And I did this, and I went, it was really weird, I ran into the thing, and I threw the feathers up. And the minute I threw these feathers up, this massive, deep scream, howl came out of me. And I fell to the floor, and I just wept. And the interesting thing then was 4 women who were actually dancers from different parts of the country responded and danced around me, and then sort of like they breathed on me, and then I got up, and that was it. And everybody was just like, you know, shocked and stuff. Well, anyway, that night I had this download of a poem, and it's in the poem. It said, it was called, I haven't got it, I'm just looking around. I haven't got it with me now, so I won't be able to tell you off the top of my head, but the dream was called, I asked for a mantle of dreams, and the feathers represented a feathered mantle of what the bards used to wear. The bards were how can I say, a creative, the creative aspect or whatever of, or the musician of the Druid order. And I had been very drawn to the Celtic spirituality in that, but that's another story. Anyway, going back to that incident, and I had this poem, and then the following night in the conference, because obviously I still had to go, even though I had this incident, the following night, another church was leading the worship, and they did something different, and that the person who was leading the worship said, all the younger generation to go and pray for the older generation to pick someone out. Well, anyway, the person who was leading the worship was the pastor's daughter of this church. And she came over to me and said, you asked God for a mantle and he's given it to you. So it was confirming my, whatever you want to call it, the feather incident the night before and my poem. So I actually left that church and joined that church. Anyway, going back to the
do you mind if I interject here for a moment?
Yeah.
I'd like to invite you just to take a nice deep breath in and hold it, and then let it out when you're ready. I'd like to invite you just to relax for a moment. You've been sharing your story for some time now, and I do have some questions that I'd like to ask you to kind of shift gears a bit here. From a medical perspective, at this point where you are at in your story sharing with me, had you been diagnosed already with schizophrenic affective bipolar? Obviously, you are on psych meds for depression, but you haven't mentioned that part of your story yet. Where were you in that diagnosis?
Right. I had been diagnosed with severe psychotic depression, and I'd had a psychotic break.
Okay.
So that was around, as I said, I had the psychotic break in, that would have been 2000. And then moving on then to 2006, what had happened in my life is that during my teaching job, my marriage was breaking down. And so I decided to leave my marriage, and then I had to end up actually leaving the job. because the stress of dealing with the divorce and stuff took its toll on me. And so I came out of that, and I tried to survive for a couple of years. So,
Had you had children with your first husband?
no, I didn't know, which I'm grateful for now.
How many years have you been married when your marriage dissolved?
We were married in '96, and I left in 2004. So
Okay.
So
8 years. Okay.
yeah, and I tried my best to make it work, but we were not compatible. We had different belief systems and stuff, you know.
If it's possible to fast forward a little bit in the spirit of the time that we have allocated, can you jump a little bit forward to when things from an emotional and mental standpoint peaked for you, and when you ended up with that diagnosis? What was your life like when you now were diagnosed with schizophrenic, affective, bipolar, and what type of meds were you on at that point, and what was going on in that moment? Were they helpful to you? Were they hurting you? And what transpired thereafter?
Right. So in 2009, after obviously leaving my job, so I was trying to make sense of, because I couldn't fit into an education system either, because I didn't like the way art was being taught and stuff like this. And I wasn't getting the answers that I needed for healing in the church either, where, you know, I was just told I needed to pray more and stuff like that. And to, obviously, you know, it was spiritually bypassing the issue, that you would, you know, you're just told to, you know, praise God all the time, and, you know, you'll be healed and wait for your miracle. Although I believed in miracles, that miracle was not within my reach. And so within me, a voice was saying to leave. And so I left the church, I think 2006, 2007. I was skirting on the edge for a while. And because they couldn't help me, and I didn't have any support from anyone, I had to go, as I said, go back to the doctors and ask for help. And that's when they further added. So I was on Prozac, and I was on like the highest dosage you can be put on. I was put on quetiapine, which is Seroquel, which is an antidepressant, and I was on almost the highest dose of that, and that was not working. On top of that, they tried various, I think it was lamotrigine, which is an anticonvulsant. And then my last port of call, well, there's two last ports of call. One is ECT, and the other was lithium. And the lithium seemed to be the less of two evils, so that I went on that. And that's all lithium does, is shut you down. But that was all I knew that could help, because I did not want to be on this planet. So I accepted becoming a zombie, because the, whatever you want to call it, psychiatric, Western medicine, do not know how to help those issues. And unfortunately, in the UK, they do not give you psychotherapy or actually help you through trauma. you know, or they don't actually ask you why you are actually depressed in the first place. They don't address those issues. They just try and mask the symptoms. And the symptoms are there for a reason, you know. They are there to tell you there is something not right in your life, you know, and you need to, you know, look at those feelings and sit with those feelings and see why are they there? Why do I feel this? And that system did not help. So fast forward then, so that was 2009, I went on lithium. With lithium, I mean, this is like red flag, whatever you want to call it. It's so toxic that you have to be having blood tests all the time to be watching your thyroid, your kidneys, your liver, and you have to have a heart trace as well. And obviously the NHS aren't known for monitoring things, and yet you go on this drug and they're suddenly all over you. So within a short space of time of being on lithium, my thyroid packed in. And I know this sounds absolutely crazy, but I gained 10 stone in weight in about 6 months. So I went to being over 300 pounds, and my thyroid was really, really struggling. I had a lot of issues with, couldn't eat certain types of food. My legs were my feet were swollen, and my legs were swollen up to my knees, so I couldn't walk very far, and I was very out of breath. And the doctors didn't care, because unfortunately, when you're labelled with a mental health condition, they don't seem to listen to you for your physical issues, you know. So anyway, I'll fast forward again. In spite of all that happening, in the year after that, in 2010, I actually met my husband that I'm with now. And that's when things started to change for me. And he was someone who accepted me and saw me for who I was. And I started to heal a little bit, and sort of be more comfortable with who I was. And then obviously it's very difficult to heal when you're on that level of medication because of the side effects. So fast forward to 2015, well, end of 2014, something happened, and I had to go, I got referred, and I had to have, what it was, I woke up choking and I coughed up blood, and I went to the doctor, and I had to have an x-ray, but the x-ray was clear, so I was sent to a thoracic consultant, and he said, there's nothing wrong with your lungs, but asked me a series of questions, and they were yes, 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 and yes. And they said, oh, we need to test you. You have got sleep apnea. And of course, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. And then that was the wake-up call for me to change my life, because I started looking at different approaches to healing. So as well as being on the machine actually, I started to feel better. Within a couple of months of being on the machine, I started feeling better. So I think that a lot of my depression was because my brain was not getting enough oxygen. So when I started to feel better, with the agreement of the psychiatrist, I started to wean off medication. So firstly, I came off antidepressants, and then I came off the anticonvulsants, and then I came off the antipsychotics. By this point then, I'd already radically changed my diet. So I'd gone gluten-free, vegetarian. I then further took out soy, and then I took out dairy then, because all these were causing issues. And then in the process of doing that, I lost 8.5 stone, and felt much better as well. And then I went to the psychiatrist and said, I want to come off lithium. And first of all, they said, no. And I said, well, I've been fine, and, you know, I'm much better. And I had to wrestle with them, but I took my power back and said, I want to be off this. I know this is doing more harm than good. You know, I have an autoimmune disease, you know, and so I wanted to change things. So they agreed with me. So it takes a long time to taper off the medication, because you have to come down. Oh, there's a whole sort of little by little, and then they wait for, there's a 4-month period of being, when you've been free, and normally people will relapse in that time because of my history, and I'd been unwell since my 20s. They were saying, oh, you're going to relapse in that 4 months of coming off the meds.
How long had you been on those meds, in your best estimate?
Nearly 20 years.
Okay.
But I'd only been on lithium like 9 years or something like that.
Okay. You know, one thing I like to just share with you is that what I'm hearing in your story is a few things unfolded for you. One is, whether you realize it or not, one of the biggest game changers for you is when you met your current husband. And I'm going to paraphrase what you said, but he opened up your world to a whole new way of living. And what I heard was most important was that maybe perhaps for the first time in your life, you felt safe in your own home to just be who you were and who you are. And what I heard you say was that he loved you and accepted you at your core.
Yes.
And he saw through all those psych meds and was able to kind of basically like part the sea, push them to the side, and go right into your soul, right into your core. He just shredded them. He pulled them apart, and he was able to see something that none of your doctors for 20 plus years was able to see within you. So your husband was, I believe, an angel that God put in your life. He may have been who saved your life. That's just something that just hit me, that popped for me as soon as you said it. And I just felt the need to share that with you. How does that feel for you to hear that right now?
Yeah, that feels good. I totally agree with you, because I was single, but from the time I left my first husband to the time I met my current husband, I think it was a gap of about 7 years. I did try and date people, but nobody would. As soon as I said my diagnosis, they were like, and stepped away. And yet when I met my current hubby, when I said my diagnosis, he goes, so what? But the reason why he could say that is because he had come through his own journey, and that he had been an alcoholic, and he had been through rehab, and he had dealt with his demons. So when he saw me and mine, he was not afraid of it, and he was able to help me through, you know.
Beautiful.
And he always encouraged me and, you know, believed, because I always believed that I could be healed. I just didn't know how I was able to do it. So he just always encouraged me. And when we first met, he was a student, and obviously I was on social, you know, disability benefit. And when we met, we both had dreams of making a living, of being creative, and that's what we've done. We made it work, and where most people, you know, cannot or haven't been able to do it, we have built up a business slowly, and we make a living from it.
That's beautiful.
So I went from, you know,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, I just went from not being able to work and not thinking I would ever work again to that I am, you know. And, you know, I want to combine now my creative gifts with, you know, helping other people get through their journey now. So that's why I did Jessica's course. So
where are you in your mental health space today? Where are you in regards to that, and on as far as the pharmaceuticals? Where are you in your journey today?
well, I'm not on any. I'm totally med free. I'm not suicidal. I don't see any horrible things, and I am more comfortable with me, and I can say I love me now, because before I couldn't. And lots of little things that have helped me on the journey, like I did EFT tapping, and when I started doing that initially, I couldn't say I loved and accepted myself. I couldn't even say it, you know. And that helped me, and that is something, you know, EFT has been very, very good for helping me. And, you know, that has been far stronger a modality than what CBD, this CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. That didn't help me, but the EFT was able to get at the core. And then combining that with Jessica's program has really helped to shift things, you know.
What do you think? What do you think? Why do you think the doctors missed what they missed with you? And what is it that you think they missed? Do you think you were misdiagnosed, or do you think that your case was that unique and that different, that they were in over their heads and they didn't know how to treat you? Do you think you even had a mental health disorder other than depression that was maybe brought on by environmental circumstances?
That is a good question, Jay. I don't really know, because obviously labels are just, you know, a amalgamation or a group of symptoms, you know. And so if you have this group of symptoms, you therefore fit into this box. So technically, I did fit in that box, although what caused those symptoms were not, you know, the same. Because there's a saying, isn't there, or a phrase, the waters that a mystic is swimming in, the schizophrenic is drowning. And I believe I was, you know, coming into gifts and abilities that I didn't have a frame of reference to deal with.
Beautiful. I love that. I love what you just said, because that's been my experience over my lifetime. You know, our stories are very similar, yet there's differences, and that's okay. But the end result was I too was on psych meds for 21 years. Now, I wasn't on the amount that you were on, and I didn't get to that extreme level of anticonvulsants and antipsychotics, but I was on antidepressants for 21 years. And I was mistreated, as far as I'm concerned, and misguided by my medical doctors. And it wasn't one, it was a number of them over that 2+ decades. And what I didn't know until I knew it was that my diagnosis was not depression. Mine was generalized anxiety disorder. I suffered from very extreme anxiety. Now, I didn't have panic attacks, thankfully, which is another level of anxiety. But I struggled with it. And there were never any solutions. All they had was pharmaceuticals for me. That was their only solution. That was my experience. And what I know today is, as far as I'm concerned, I was mistreated because not one of them ever really had the ability to really dig in with me and look at the anxiety was not my problem. The anxiety was just a symptom. And we never really went deep within and did the work to work on uncovering what was the root cause of the anxiety. And I never got there with a professional doctor. I have gotten to the space of what I'll call the healing of my mind, body, and soul through the work that I have navigated through on my own, utilizing different modalities such as you have. And here's where it's just so sad from my experience and your experience that there are millions of people that are desperate for answers. And we have a medical system that, as far as I'm concerned, lacks, is broken, because we're abusing people by pushing drugs on them that cause all kinds of internal damage and havoc to our bodies, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You ended up with autoimmune because of being on some significant drugs that impacted your vital organs and system. I ended up with autoimmune as well, that I attribute to being on these drugs at the maximum for 21 years. And but you know what the beautiful thing is today, Sharron, is that you had your awakening, and you are drug-free today. You no longer live in a bondage of those behaviors, those symptoms that you had struggled with, and you are contributing to your own life. And I believe that you are helping other people just by showing up and sharing your truth and your experience as it was. And what a beautiful story that you shared today. You know, that for those that are in it, that are suffering and think there are no answers, there are only doctors and drugs, that may be what's best for you, but I know this, it wasn't what was best for you, and it certainly wasn't what was best for me. And, you know, here's my happy ending today. I don't live in a constant state of anxiety. In 3.5 years, I may have had days where I've had, let's say, I was aware that I was feeling anxious, and within hours, I was able to walk myself through that feeling, those feelings, and come out on the other side without reaching for drugs, without reaching for cigarettes, without reaching for another 12-hour day at the office, without reaching for sex, without reaching for all of the unhealthy addictive behaviors and tools that I reached for, because that's all that I knew, because I didn't know what I didn't know. You know, and today it looks like you continue to use art and EFT and other healing modalities that have taught you how to take care of yourself in a healthy way.
I mean, one thing I would say is that the reason why we have a medical system is it's a reflection of how we treat ourselves, because our body is a feedback to our soul. And when we are out of alignment, it tells us, but we do not listen. And so we have a medical profession who does not listen to us. You know, it bullies us and we bully ourselves. And that is the reflection.
Thank you for sharing that. And we are over time right now. Can you hear me, Sharron?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I lost you for a moment. We are over the hour.
Yeah.
If you have a few minutes, I'd like to stay with this conversation just for a few more minutes. Is that okay? Do you have a few more?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I want to just take a moment just to honor you and thank you for having the courage to step forward today and to share your story with not only me, but for those that are with us, that have been with us live in this Facebook live stream today, and those that catch us on replay. You have an amazing story. It is so much bigger than just the diagnosis and the labels. It's bigger than the drugs. It's bigger than the churches that didn't understand you as much as the medical community did not understand you. It's so much bigger than all of those parts. The whole is so much bigger. And to me, what the whole is that it took a few things to show up in your life when you were ready to receive them. You know, the teacher shows up when the student is ready. One was the blessing, the gift that you received, which is your husband. The second was that one medical professional that asked you some key questions that also, I believe, contributed to the improvement in your life, which was when you were diagnosed with sleep apnea, which had, I believe, had a major impact on your health. And so what I'd like to ask you to do with just a few minutes left here is if you could perhaps share some closing thoughts and words, perhaps maybe some wisdom from your experiences overall that maybe someone that's listening live or on replay hears you say that they resonate with, that can help maybe change the trajectory of their life and their health. And then I'll share my parting thoughts as well.
There's so many things I could say, but I think the biggest thing is to accept yourself. It's okay to be you. It's okay to feel what you feel, and that you are loved. Even though, you know, there may be no one in your life that understands you, there is a higher aspect of you who loves you. And if you sit with that and just begin to try and integrate that you are loved, and just begin to, I know it's difficult because when you're in your darkest hour and you don't want to be here, to say, someone saying you're loved is difficult, but it's just being with yourself, and it's okay. And everybody on this planet has got a purpose and a reason for being here. You may not know this at this time, but you are here for a reason. You have a unique piece of the big puzzle, and you matter. And you have a place here. And if you just be patient and begin to trust your own inner voice, your own, you know, your intuition, whatever you want to call it. If you begin to trust it, you will be shown how to heal. Your body knows how to heal. And it's just to sit and, you know, listen. I know it's difficult and it takes, you know, time to do that. But if you start, you know, meditation or some sort of practice, that can help you to begin to get to know your body and how it talks to you. Because every single thought and every single thing you've been through is stored in your cellular memory. And so your body wants to tell you this and wants to help you release that. You know, there's loads of different modalities that can help release that. And there's grounding is a very, a good practice of connecting with the earth, because we are electrical beings, and so that charge needs to go through us. So connecting with the earth or the sand or whatever, the grass, barefoot, will help. That helps with pain, that helps with lots of different things. So
beautiful. We are connected right now, Sharron, in more than one way. The words you spoke were the words that I was going to speak. We're also connected another way. I shared with you this before we went on this morning, that we're connected through your name, although your name is spelled differently. I have a sister that still lives in New York, and she just commented. I wasn't sure if she stayed with us on the show or not, but she did, and she just said, I posted it up on the screen. You'll see it on the replay. She says, to you, such beauty emanates from you as you speak of what you have learned. And, it just touched my soul to read that, because what I have learned, I've learned so much over my own healing process and journey in the past 3.5 years. But I think what I've learned, what's so important and profound, I'm just going to echo what you shared, which is we put all of our faith and trust in the medical community and in external people, places, and things, whether it be a doctor, whether it be a church, whether it be a synagogue, whether it be a school, whether it be our friends, relatives. And we're seeking answers from external people, places, and things because we think we don't know. And we are conflicted and we are confused because we are in pain. But we're looking in all the wrong places. And if we slow down our thinking and our thoughts just long enough to understand, as you shared so eloquently, Sharron, we have all the answers within ourselves. We just have to distract our thoughts and thinking long enough to start to listen for the answers. And the answers are already within us. It's our inner voice. Whether it be our inner voice, the voice of divine, the voice of God, our answers are there. We're just ignoring them, and we're ignoring them enough to where we're willing to put our life at risk by listening to outside influences that are hurtful and don't serve us all the time. And what I've had to learn how to do is trust my intuition. I remember early on in the healing process, I was seeing probably the only therapist that had any talent and skill set in my 22 years at that point. And he said probably the most profound statement to me. And his name is Michael Alvarez. And what he said to me was, you have to learn how to trust yourself. I had never trusted myself. How can you trust yourself when you don't like yourself and you don't love yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I never forgot those words. It's been 3.5 years, and I didn't stay that long with him. I heard what I needed to hear, and he was my teacher for as long as he needed to be, because I allowed myself to begin to trust myself as I learned how to like myself and eventually led to loving myself. And what I've learned is to have faith and trust in myself. And I'm drug-free today. I exited out of pharmaceuticals for mental health shortly after I had the courage to turn my life upside down and right-side it up and change everything, because it was that or die. And it was shortly thereafter I went to my psychiatrist and I said, I went off all these meds. I want to do it the healthy way. I want to do it the right way. So I'm coming here to pay you to teach me how to come off these meds that I had been on for 21 years at the max. And he said, why? And I said, because it's time. It's my time now.
Yeah.
And within a month and a half, I was off, and I began to feel things I hadn't felt in 21 years. And the tears began to stroll down my cheeks. Because what that was, the metaphor for me was my soul had been frozen like a block of ice being on these meds. I didn't know how to feel anymore. And I didn't know how to reveal them and express them. But as I came off those drugs and I started to feel, I began to reveal, and through that I began to heal. And for me, the tears was my soul thawing out. And I never want to be frozen again. And I love when I'm able to feel and express it, coming from love and kindness to myself and foremost. And my life is different today, as I know yours is, because you had the courage to, you were desperate for help. We just were getting it, and we were getting the wrong type of help that we needed. But you were given a gift of life. And today you get to give it away and pay it forward to others. And for that, I honor you today, and I thank you. And with that, how do you feel in this moment right now? After having, this is the first time you've come on live to step forward and step in and share your truth to this level of a live format, like a live stream. How do you feel right now?
I feel lighter. I do feel like another layer has lifted. And I hope that, I've given hope to someone else, and that, it is possible to heal, and there is better.
If anybody is listening to you on live or replay and they want to reach out to you to ask you some questions, or maybe ask for some guidance or some inspiration continued from you, how can people find you today?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, which is Purple Alchemist. That's my art name. So if you look for Purple Alchemist, and I've also got an Instagram page, which is the Purple Alchemist as well. So you can get in touch with me with either of those. So because what I'm hoping to do in the future is run workshops, and I would like to ideally do retreats where I'm marrying, creative exercises with other healing modalities and stuff, to start people getting to know who they are.
Beautiful.
So,
well, I have a sneaky suspicion that it's only a matter of time, that if it's important to you, you will show up and you'll put it together for yourself and for others. And with that, we let's call this a wrap. Thank you for joining me today. Yes, you are in the business. I know that we had you coming today because you're about to be on set. You're filming a movie with your husband, I believe, next week.
Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.
What's the movie about, by the way?
You probably won't like this, but it's a Halloween movie. It's a sequel to another one we've done. It's called Halloween Jack. So it's a cheesy B movie Halloween film. So
all right. Well, good luck on the set. Enjoy your time there, and thank you for joining me today on Real People, Real Health. We'll catch you next time on Sunday. I've got a show I'm doing with my co-host Debbie on Real People, Real Stories Raw. We've got a guest coming in. Her name is Sharron, and I'm not going to give away her story. You'll hear it on Sunday, and I'll be posting what time we'll be coming in from United States and from Canada. But for now, have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful evening. And I know it's getting up there. It's over 9:15 or so in Wales, Great Britain. Thank you for joining us live today, and we'll catch you next time. Have a beautiful weekend. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.